The grand conclave of the Kith Dominion, hung in the accretion disk of a dead star, a ring-shaped station large enough to swallow moons. In its central amphitheater, 23 species watched the newest petitioner with a kind of amusement reserved for a cub trying to roar. Humanity had arrived in a ship that looked welded together from salvage and stubbornness, a blocky vessel that leaked thermal exhaust in irregular puffs. The delegates saw frail body, soft skin, and eyes that held an unnerving mix of weariness and mirth. High Marshal Geron of the Kith Dominion, a towering reptilian whose battle scars pulsed with biolite, tapped a claw on the armrest of his throne. His translated voice rolled through the chamber like a low-frequency growl. We have read the intelligence briefs. Your species fought itself with fission, weapons, and chemical clouds before you even left your atmosphere. You call that a military heritage? Scattered clicks and chitters rose from the gathered species, thulling hive Master Zal reconnaissance swarms, even the usually reserved Gresh conclave. Geron leaned forward, letting the silence gather weight. You bring no planetary siege engines, no psychic legions. You ask for a defense pact and offer what? A fleet of rust and hope. The amphitheater erupted. The Zal produced a high whistling sound that was their version of a guffaw. The Gresh pounded manipulator limbs against their desks in rhythmic approval. It was not malicious, not entirely. It was the genuine, unguarded laughter of predators who had just been asked to respect house pet. The human delegation did not shrink. 3 figures in simple gray uniform stood at the center of the great floor. The oldest, a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too many dawns, waited. Her name was Ambassador Myra Vance. She clasped her hands behind her back, and her lips held a shape that might in another context have been called a patient smile. The laughter crested and began to ebb. Vance let the last echo fade before she spoke, her voice clear and unamplified. Yet somehow it reached every corner of the chamber. High Marshal, honored species of the conclave, we are ready to present our formal military capability demonstration. We request a tactical display slot. Geron's crest quivered with lingering amusement. Granted. Let us see what the humans have brought to impress the galaxy. Vance nodded once. The lights dimmed and the central holosphere flared to life. Every delegate expected a parade of warships, a compilation of battle footage, perhaps a holographic recruitment reel. Instead, a single human transport vessel rotated into view. It was a boxy craft, unarmed, its hull marked with simple identifying glyphs. A collective murmur ran through the audience, the precursor to another wave of laughter. Then Vance spoke again, and her words cut the murmur short. Humanity's true military power is not a ship, it is a battlefield condition we call the static. How? You will experience a level 1 demonstration. Please keep your neural links open for full effect. Aboard that distant transport, 3 human operatives closed their eyes and let their minds synchronize, their heart rates aligned, their brain waves folded into a shared pattern that human science in its darker laboratories had only recently learned to weaponize. The moment their focus locked, something invisible and vast pushed outward faster than light, slipping through dimensions that most species did not know existed. In the conclave amphitheater, every neural implant screamed. Part 2. The scream was not sound, it was a sensation like being dropped into freezing vacuum while 1,000 voices whispered the listener's most intimate fears. High Marshal Jaren's command implant, military-grade neural lace hardened against electronic warfare, spat a cascade of error signals. His tactical overlay populated with phantom vessels, hundreds of them moving in attack formations that violated known physics. His targeting systems assigned threat priorities to empty space. His own biological heartbeat amplified through the link became a frantic drum roll he could not silence. The Zal reconnaissance swarms collapsed into frantic spirals, their shared consciousness fragmenting into 100,000 individual terrors. The Gresh delegates clawed at their temples, their disciplined minds suddenly awash with images of home worlds burning, not from human weapons, but from accidents, betrayals, natural disasters, every improbable catastrophe unfolding simultaneously in their minds. The Kith military attaches stationed around the amphitheater scrambled to lock down weapon systems that were already malfunctioning. A cruiser docked outside the ring station fired its main cannons at an empty patch of space because its targeting computer suddenly believed a ghost fleet was launching torpedoes. Emergency bulkhead sealed, damage control alarms blared. All of this happened in 12 seconds. Ambassador Vance stood unmoving, her gray uniform stark against the chaos. She spoke as though delivering a weather report. The static howl is a modulated projection of synchronized human cognitive emissions. Every human brain produces a low-level probability distortion field, what we call ambient discord. When we concentrate that field, the effects you are experiencing occur. Your technologies rely on deterministic models. The howl introduces controlled chaos into those models. Jaren's claws gouged the armrest. His voice came out raw, stripped of its earlier condescension. Stop this now. Vance inclined her head a fraction. The holosphere flickered and the transport vessel vanished from view. Aborted. Snorts. The three operatives disengaged their trance. The effect did not vanish. It receded like a tide pulling back from a devastated shore. Phantoms faded. Targeting array slowly reported clean space. The psychic legion, still trembling, found their minds clearing. The amphitheater was utterly silent. Not a single species made a sound. The earlier laughter had become an embarrassing memory, a relic from a version of reality that no longer existed. Jaren's crest lay flat against his skull, a physiological sign of deep stress. He forced himself to look directly at the human ambassador. You expect us to believe that three minds can fleet? He asked, but the question lacked conviction. Vance met his gaze. No, High Marshal. 3 minds performed a level 1 pulse. A mild demonstration intended for safe exposure. The cacophony core operates at level 7 for strategic deployments. At that threshold, entire armadas experience cascading reality failure. Ships turn on one another, navigational systems loop until hulls tear apart. Crews are driven to catatonic states by direct neural feedback. We have never needed to deploy level 10. A new emotion crept into the alien faces. Around the chamber, it was not respect. It was the dawning horror of creatures who had just discovered they had been living next to something fundamentally incomprehensible. Admiral Corps of the Kith 7th Fleet, A battle-scarred veteran who had never retreated rose from his seat, his hand moved toward his personal console, a gesture so slight no one noticed except a single human aide watching the crowd. The Admiral's intention was clear. Activate a failsafe, launch a preemptive strike, prove that human trickery could not stand against overwhelming firepower. His console screen did not respond. Instead, it displayed a single line of text in flawless Kith script: "You are already inside the howl." Part 3. Core froze, his hand hovering over the dead console. The text did not blink, it simply sat there, an undeniable fact. He looked up and found Ambassador Vance's eyes already on him. She had not moved. None of the humans had, yet Core understood with the clarity of a soldier reading a minefield that his intent had been registered long before his muscles twitched. Vance addressed the chamber again. The Discord is not a weapon you can detect or jam. It operates on principles that your sciences have not yet formalized. Every human is a node. When we synchronize emotional states, fear, determination, the focused will to survive. The effect amplifies. Our ancestors used it unconsciously. They called it the fog of war, the chaos of battle, the inexplicable turn of fortune that broke sieges and shattered empires. We have learned to aim it. The holosphere reactivated, this time displaying declassified footage. The delegates watched a Kith dreadnought squadron in deep space, pristine and terrifying. Then the recording changed. The human cacophony core had released a Level 3 pulse from a support vessel. Beyond weapons range, the Kith formation disintegrated, not from explosions but from internal collapse. One dreadnought fired a full broadside into its own escort cruiser. Another began accelerating in a random vector until its structural integrity failed. The Admiral's flagship transmitted a looping distress call that was just a recording of the captain's final hysterical laughter. No human vessel fired a shot. The chamber remained silent, but the silence now had a different texture. It was the quiet of creatures reassessing every interaction they had ever had with humanity. The jokes, the dismissive pats on the head, the diplomatic snubs, all of it now looked like a child poking a sleeping predator. High Marshal Jaren forced his crest to rise, a conscious act of composure. What do you want, Ambassador Vance? You have made your point. Humanity is dangerous. Is this a declaration of dominance? Vance shook her head. No, this is a request for reciprocity. We want the defense pact we originally asked for. We want our colonies protected under Kith law. We want a seat on the military oversight council, not as observers but as voting members, and we want every species in this chamber to understand one thing. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Humanity has never unleashed its full potential because we have always been afraid of what we might become. We laugh, we make jokes, we keep our discord on a tight leash because the alternative is a galaxy that burns without a single warhead detonating. We are not asking for fear, we are asking for the chance to remain who we are without having to prove ourselves through annihilation. Jaron's command channel still recovering from the howl pinged with an incoming priority message from the Kith homeworld. And GT snorts. And GT. The High Command had been observing the demonstration through secure feeds. Their analysis was succinct. Grant them everything, do not provoke further. Demonstration. Repeat, do not provoke. The Grand Marshal read the message 3 times. Then he rose to his full height. A gesture of formal capitulation. The Kith Dominion will sponsor humanity's full membership, all treaty requests are approved. This conclave recognizes humanity as a strategic peer. No applause followed, only the slow, reluctant acknowledgement of a balance of power that had shifted irreversibly. The species that had laughed were now calculating how many human operatives it would take to erase their fleets, their governments, their minds. The answer, they suspected, was far lower than any of them wanted to know. Part 4. In a private observation lounge after the formal session, Ambassador Vance sat across from High Marshal Geron and Admiral Cord. The room was bare, stripped of ceremonial trappings, just a low table and 4 chairs. The 4th chair was occupied by a human man Geron had not seen before. Broad-shouldered individual with close-cropped hair and a face that gave away nothing. This is Major Ronan Webb, Vance said. He commands the Cacophony Corps training division. I thought you might have questions we could not answer in the open. Geron's crest twitched. The discord is it truly biological? Every human produces it. Webb spoke, his voice a calm baritone. Every human brain generates the field. From early childhood, it's a survival trait. Our evolutionary record shows a gap, a period where our ancestors faced predators that shouldn't have existed by normal biological rules, creatures that hunted through dimensional angles, things that slipped between perception. Our minds adapted to impose chaos on anything that tried to outcalculate us. When we band together, the field scales exponentially. Core leaned forward, his scarred face intense. And you train this, you turn children into weapons. We teach control, Webb said, and a flicker of something hard passed through his eyes. The Cacophony Corps does not recruit children, we recruit volunteers, adults who understand the burden. The discord never turns off, it's always there, a background hum. Most humans learn to suppress it so thoroughly they forget it exists. Our training is about learning to stop suppressing it in controlled bursts for specific durations. The danger is that if a human loses control completely, they can become a walking howl. That has not happened in over a century. Geron absorbed this, so you sit on a species-wide existential threat and call it a military asset. Vance took a sip of water. We call it our nature. The difference between a wildfire and a reactor core is control. We have control. The demonstration today was a level 1 pulse from 3 operatives. If we had wanted to hurt anyone, we could have used a level 5 pulse from a single operative, and every neural linked creature in that amphitheater would now be in a vegetative state. Core's color shifted, an involuntary biological response. You expect us to trust that control. I expect you to recognize that we have had this capability for millennia, and we have not conquered the galaxy, Vance replied. We have not weaponized it against neighbors. We came here asking for a treaty, not offering an ultimatum. The howl was unveiled because you left us no other way to be heard. Now you have heard us. The question is what you do with that understanding. The door chimed. An aide entered, a young Kith with trembling scales, and handed Geron a data tablet. The Grand Marshal scanned it and his crest went pale. He handed it silently to Core, who read it and made a sound deep in his throat that was not a word. Vance waited. The Homeworld Council has completed threat analysis, Jaren said, his voice flat. They estimate that a full cacophony core deployment could render the Kith Dominion's entire military network inoperative in under 4 minutes. The estimate for all 23 conclave species combined is 11 minutes. Your species has been a member of this galactic community for 3 standard cycles, and we are only now learning that you could have dismantled us at any moment. Webb stood and walked to the observation window, looking out at the dead stars. Accretion disk, we didn't want to, he said quietly. We still don't, but now you understand why we will never apologize for showing you the truth. The laughter had to stop, not because it hurt our pride, but because it was leading you toward a confrontation you could not win. We stopped the war before it started. Part 5. The news spread across the galaxy within a single cycle. The Kith Dominion's official declaration of humanity's pure status was followed by a sealed intelligence file distributed to every member species. A file that detailed the static howl, the cacophony core, and the discord threshold. The file concluded with a blunt recommendation: do not test human restraint, it is not infinite. On 100 worlds, military strategists recalculated every scenario that involved humanity. Offensive plans were scrapped, defensive contingencies were rewritten to include discord countermeasures, though no one had any real idea what those would look like. Research divisions were tasked with understanding human neurobiology, but the initial reports were baffling. The human brain simply did things that no other known brain could do, generating fields that violated conservation laws and causality itself. Ambassador Vance returned to Earth aboard the same blocky vessel that had carried her to the Conclave. Major Webb accompanied her, along with the 3 operatives who had executed the demonstration. In the ship's common area, the operatives played a card game, their laughter easy and genuine. It was the first time Webb had heard them laugh since before the mission, and the sound was a relief. Vance watched them from the galley. They're good kids, she said to Webb. They handled the pulse perfectly. I saw the recordings. Their stress levels never spiked above baseline. They're trained for worse, Webb said. But they're also what the aliens are now afraid of. 23 species look at any human and wonder if we're about to melt their minds. That's going to change things. Change was the point, Vance said. We tried the friendly route. We brought trade deals, cultural exchanges, medical technology. They patted us on the head and laughed. I didn't want to reveal the discord, none of us did, but the alternative was watching humanity get squeezed out of every resource claim, every defense pact, every piece of territory, until we were a vassal species. In all but name, the Howl bought us a seat at the table. Now we have to prove we're worth keeping there. The ship's communications officer pinged Vance's personal channel. Ambassador, we're receiving a tight beam from the Kith homeworld. It's priority. Black your eyes only. Vance took the message in her quarters. The screen resolved into the image of High Marshal Jaren, unarmored, his crest half collapsed with exhaustion. Ambassador Vance, he said, I am sending this unofficially. The Conclave has been contacted by an entity that calls itself the Unmaking. It claims to originate from beyond the galactic rim, and it has demanded immediate surrender from all known species. It enforces perfect order. Our analysts believe its nature may be resistant to the Discord's chaos-based disruption. I'm informing you because if humanity has additional capabilities you have not disclosed, now would be the time to consider revealing them. Jiron out. Vance stared at the blank screen for a long time, then she opened a separate, deeply encrypted channel to a facility buried beneath the lunar surface. Facility that did not appear on any official registry. The channel connected to a single individual, a woman even older than Vance, with eyes that seemed to hold an impossible stillness. Silent Harmony Protocol, Vance said. Begin readiness preparations. The woman on the other end nodded once, and the channel closed. Part 6. The cacophony core was humanity's hammer, but the Silent Harmony was a scalpel that had never been used, where the Discord weaponized chaos. The Silent Harmony imposed coherence, an absolute, unbreakable order that could lock any system, any mind, any reality into a single inescapable pattern. The scientists who had discovered it called it the antithesis of the howl. The military kept it buried so deep that even most of the cacophony core did not know it existed. Vance briefed Webb during the final approach to Earth. The Unmaking enforces order. It erases deviation. The Discord might not work because the Discord thrives on disruption. If the Unmaking is pure stasis, chaos can't take root. But Silent Harmony is a different weapon. It doesn't break order, it hijacks it. It becomes the most dominant order in the system and forces everything else to synchronize. If we deploy it against the Unmaking, we can impose our coherence over theirs and crash their command structure. Webb processed the implications. You're talking about a mental hack that takes over the enemy's own logic and makes it ours. Has this ever been tested on a live target? Once on a rogue human psychic who had become a walking Discord node. Silent Harmony pulled him back into coherence and then shut him down. He survived, but he's not the same. We have never used it on a non-human entity. We don't know if it will work across species barriers, let alone on something that isn't biological. The lunar facility was a silent city of gray corridors and soundproof chambers. The operatives there were not warriors in the traditional sense. They were meditators, mathematicians, and philosophers who had spent decades training their minds to hold a single, perfect note of stillness. Their commander was the woman Vance had contacted, Dr. Alara Sohn, 93 years old, and still sharp enough to cut glass. Sohn met them in a conference room that overlooked a vast chamber where 12 operatives sat in absolute immobility, their brain waves projecting a unified field that made the air feel thick and heavy. They've been sustaining a level 4 coherence field for 6 hours, Sohn said. The longest we've ever held was 8. They'll be ready to deploy if the Unmaking breaches Allied space. Vance watched the 12 figures, ordinary humans wearing simple robes, their faces serene. The galaxy thinks we're monsters because of the howl. What will they think when they see this? They'll think we're something else entirely, Sohn replied, and they'll be right. The Discord is chaos. Silent Harmony is order. We hold both. That's not a contradiction, it's a choice. Humans are the only species that can exist at both extremes and still remain themselves. The howl is our roar. Harmony is our silence. The galaxy laughed at our noise. It has not yet heard our quiet. The alert came 12 hours later. The unmaking had bypassed the Kith border fleets without a single shot fired. Ships simply stopped their cruise, frozen in mid-action, their systems locked into a perfect, unmoving pattern. The entity advanced toward the core worlds, and the conclaves combined military response had been neutralized. In minutes, the galaxy was about to fall to an enemy that could not be fought with chaos or firepower. From the lunar facility, Vance transmitted a single message to the Conclave High Command: hold your positions, do not engage, we will deploy in 1 hour. High Marshal Jaren, watching his own fleet turn to statues on the tactical display, could only wait and remember the human ambassador's words from months earlier. They had only shown a level 1 pulse. What was coming now had never been seen by any living being. Part 7. The Silent Harmony deployment was not a pulse. It was a wave that traveled along the same dimensional conduits the Discord used, but its signature was the inverse. A perfect crystalline stillness that did not scream, but instead whispered a single undeniable command: synchronize. The 12 operatives in the lunar chamber opened their eyes at the same instant. Their unified consciousness reached out across light years, guided by targeting data from every allied sensor platform, and touched the Unmaking's vanguard. The contact was immediate and total. Where the Unmaking enforced its own rigid pattern, Silent Harmony did not fight, it absorbed. It became the pattern, and then it changed the definition of what the pattern was. On 1,000 Kith warships, the frozen crews gasped back to life, their systems rebooted with new command protocols, not their own, not human, but a shared logic that recognized the Unmaking as an error state and walled it off. The alien entity, vast and incomprehensible, found itself locked inside a self-referential loop. Its order no longer encompassed everything, because a new order had overwritten the boundaries. The Unmaking sent a single reverberating communication across every frequency. It was not a surrender, it was a question. The first question that ancient consciousness had ever been compelled to ask. What are you? From the lunar facility, Dr. Sohn answered through the harmony field itself. Her voice merged with the 12 operatives. We are the ones who choose. The Unmaking withdrew, not destroyed, but repelled by something it could not assimilate, a will that could hold perfect order without losing its own identity. The Allied fleets, restored to function, watched the invaders' presence recede beyond the galactic rim, leaving behind a silence that felt like breath held too long. Ambassador Vance addressed the conclave one final time, not from the amphitheater, but from the lunar chamber, with the 12 harmony operatives visible behind her. You have now seen both edges of humanity's sword, she said. The howl breaks what cannot be reasoned with. The harmony mends what chaos cannot touch. We kept these abilities hidden, not because we sought advantage, but because we were not sure we could control them. Today we proved we can. High Marshal Jaren, aboard his activated flagship, responded on an open channel heard across the galaxy. The Kith Dominion withdraws all standing military assessments of humanity. From this moment we consider Your species not a peer, but a guardian. The laughter we once gave you is our deepest shame. Vance allowed herself a small, weary smile. We never wanted shame. We wanted to be heard. Now that you are listening, we have something to say. She paused, and the galaxy held its collective attention. Humanity has always walked a line between creation and destruction. We laugh because we know the alternative is despair. We hold chaos in one hand and order in the other, and every day we wake up and choose which one to use. You mistook our laughter for weakness. You were wrong. When we laugh, it is because we have looked into the void and found it lacking. When we are silent, it is because we are choosing to let you live. She let the silence hang for 3 full seconds. Remember that the next time you hear a human laugh, it is not an invitation to mockery. It is the sound of a species that has made peace with its own terror. And if you ever hear us go quiet across an entire world, run. The transmission ended in the conclave, amphitheater, and 100 government halls on thousands of ships. No one spoke, no one laughed. The moment stretched into a new understanding, and across the galaxy, the species that had once dismissed humanity began teaching their children a simple truth: when humans are loud, be grateful. When humans are silent, be afraid. And no one ever laughed at humanity again.